Before going into the upcoming tutorial, it's useful to have a general understanding of the edgeEngine architecture. Getting an edgeEngine microservice up and running requires some work. Understanding why you're going to do that work will help you see the big picture. It all has to do with how edgeEngine enables access to the Mimik cloud and the Mimik networking infrastructure. The most important thing to understand about microservices running under edgeEngine is that they run in a serverless manner. So how does that happen? Well, what's going to happen is you're going to install both the Mimik CLI tool and the Mimik edgeEngine on your local machine. And Mimik edgeEngine has a number of components. The most important component is the API gateway, which is also bound to a single HTTP server that's controlled by edgeEngine Runtime. Now, what will happen is when you call a microservice, which you're going to install later on, when you call a microservice's endpoint, the API gateway will create an ephemeral runtime, which will actually invoke the logic of the endpoint and return a response. Then, once that activity is over, once the endpoint does its work, the runtime will go away. It's ephemeral. And this is true for any endpoint that you call through edgeEngine. So in this case, we have microservice 1, endpoint 1. That's going to create a runtime endpoint 1. When we call endpoint 2, it'll create a runtime 2. That'll call endpoint 2. And the same with microservice 2, endpoint 1. Every time an endpoint is called, edgeEngine Runtime will create an ephemeral runtime and execute the logic, and then it'll go away. So that's one part that's really important. The other part is understanding the function of the CLI tool. The CLI tool, as you'll learn, will be used to deploy edgeEngine OCI compliant images and make containers based on those images. The other thing that the CLI tool will do is it will allow you to ask Mimik Cloud to get an access token, and it will pass that access token on to edgeEngine. And the reason you need that access token is to interact with Mimik network services and the Mimik Cloud. So what is it you get when you get access to the Mimik network services? Well, the thing you get is access to the edgeEngine service mesh. And the edgeEngine service mesh allows you to interact with the network in three different ways. One way is called a proximity cluster, which will give you access to other edgeEngine devices running in close proximity to you. The other one is networking, the network cluster, which will give you access to edgeEngine devices in a network domain or in your local area network. And the third thing that the service mesh allows you to do is to access services based on the account that the service belongs to. And you're going to see account activity when you do any of the tutorials that are going to be coming up. So what are the features the edgeEngine network provides? It gives you node discovery. It gives you service discovery. It gives you secure tunneling and zero trust security. Also, the edgeEngine service mesh and networking capabilities provide observability and analytics. So there you go. That's what edgeEngine is about. And now you're going to take a tutorial that's going to show you a particular detail about how to work with edgeEngine. Hi, I'm Bob Resselman. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share an introductory lesson about how to create a Mimik microservice. So the purpose of this track is to demonstrate in a hands-on manner how to get a predefined Mimik microservice up and running from start to finish. The track is divided into the following topics. Topic 1 is installing the Mimik edgeEngine Runtime. Topic 2 is installing the Mimik command line interface tool. And then 3 is creating a Mimik account. 4 is creating a Mimik project, which will be in an account. Number 5 is creating the developer ID token, which represents the project in the account. Topic 6 is creating an access token. Topic 7 is associating the access token. And then topic 8 is preparing the edgeEngine microservice for deployment. And to do that, we're going to deploy the edgeEngine image in topic 9. And then we're going to deploy the container, which is based on that image, in topic 10. And then finally in topic 11, we're going to exercise the edgeEngine microservice. And we'll start at the beginning with topic 1, installing the Mimik edgeEngine runtime. So we'll go into the Instruqt interactive learning environment. We'll clone the edgeEngine runtime from GitHub. And then we'll do step 2, which is to uncompress the tar file. Step 3, we'll go into the working directory for the edgeEngine runtime. And then we're going to start the runtime using start.sh. And we'll start it in the background. And then we're going to clear the screen, just because we can. Okay, and then the next step is installing the command line interface tool. So right now Mimik's going to check to make sure we've done, Instruqt's going to check to make sure we've done everything right. And we're going to start. Okay, so let's go get the CLI tool. We're going to do an npm install. And then we're going to run the command line tool to do a get me on the account. And we'll fork that into JQ, which will make it pretty JSON. Okay, and you can see everything but the account ID is present. That means we still have more work to do. That's okay. So next we're going to go and create a Mimik account. And to do that, we're going to have to take a trip out into the Mimik developer portal and web UI. And this lesson discusses the details of it. But we'll take step 1, we'll go to the developer console, which opens here. And I already have an account, so I'm going to sign right in. When you come in for the first time, you're going to have to create an account. I already have an account. And then I'm going to go to my edgeEngine projects. And you can see I already have an edgeEngine project. So in the following steps, we're going to actually create the developer ID. But we need to go into my project right here, which is simple project. And this is predefined. When you sign up for Mimik the first time, you're going to create an account, and then you're going to create a project name to work in and name it accordingly. I've already done that. All right, so we've done this, and you can read up on it in the Instruqt interactive learning environment. And then you'll also see some instructions about how to create a project. Okay, and this is good. And now we're going to actually create the developer ID token. And to do that, I'm going to go back to my dashboard and I'm going to go get ID token. And when I click it, what you'll do is you'll see the ID token come out. I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to blank it out because this is secure information. So you'll see some blanks in this video. Don't worry, when you go get ID, you're going to get something like the following. But again, I'm going to blank this out. But anyway, so that's how we create the developer ID token. Okay, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to copy the developer ID token from here in step 3. I'm going to do developer ID token, and I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and I'm going to hit that big icon there, copy it, and then I'm going to paste it in. And again, I'm going to blur this out a little so you don't see the exact details. But again, this is the developer ID token. And then I'm going to save it to bash RC so it keeps it on record. And that's what I've done. So next, I have to create an access token. So I'm going to echo the developer ID token. And you'll see, again, this is going to be blanked out. But for now, I'm going to clear the screen. You can see that it worked. And then I'm going to go step 2, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an access token. And the way that's done is I use Mimik Edge CLI account, get edge access token, and I pass the developer ID token as a option, the -T option. And I'm going to take the result and I'm going to send it into JQ so you can see it. So I'm going to go there. That's done. And then I'm going to go to step 3, this is just some housekeeping that you'll do in Instruqt. And this is, I just want to isolate the access token. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to strip out the unnecessary quotes, just so I can make it nice and clean. And then I'm going to echo the access token. And the access token is only available for a certain amount of time. But I'm going to clear it anyway. The access token. Again, it's secure. Then I'm going to go to 6, here, step 6, and I'm going to send that to bash rc as the environment variable access underscore token. So there you go. Okay, that's done. Next, I'm going to associate the access token. Let me start up. Okay, I'm going to echo the access token just to make sure it's there. Then I'm going to clear the screen. The access token is there. Let me clear the screen just for security's sake. Then I'm going to associate the access token. And take a look at it. It says I'm going to use the CLI tool, mimik edge CLI account, and I'm going to associate using the /t option, and that reflects the access token. So I got that. Let's do that. And then you can see this is the response. And so it's saying, okay, there's the account and the access token has been successfully associated. And you can, that's reflected in the documentation here. Okay, so, and this is happening within the Mimik network. Nothing to save locally. It's all happening in the background on the Mimik computing environment. So let me check. And then we're going to prepare the Edge microservice for deployment. That's the next step we're going to do. So let me start it up. And then I'm going to go, now I'm going to go get the microservice source code. So here I'm going to go into, going back to the root, and then I'm going to go out to GitHub and get the starter microservice source code. Then I'm going to change directory into the starter microservice working directory. Then I'm going to run npm install to install the node dependency libraries. I did that, CD, and you can see that all went in. That's step number 3. So step number 4, now I'm going to actually build the image. And the image, this is not a Kubernetes image. This is a Mimik microservice image. But nonetheless, it serves the same conceptual purpose. It's a template upon which the actual microservice will be realized. So you can see that's done. Let's go to here. And we're going to do npm run, and we're going to package it up now. And we're going to send the output into packageinfo.txt. Okay. And then let's take a look at packageinfo.txt. That's step number 6. And you can see this is the package info. And you can see that the microservice, that the image is really at the build microservice v1-1-0.3 tar. Okay, and that's where it is. We'll get the output setting. Okay, so this is the image, but now we have to realize it. So I need to do a little housekeeping. On step 7, I need to pull out some stuff because what I really want to do is get the build path. And so I'm going to pull the build path. This is the build path right here, this last line. So I'm going to set that to the environmental variable build path. And then I'm going to echo the build path. And you can see these match up. So here it is here it is here, and we like that. That's very good. So now we have to export that build path out to bash rc, so it's always available between topics. And then we're going to create the the microservice path. And so we're going to say, we're going to echo the microservice path, which is the present working directory plus the build path. And let's echo the microservice path. Okay, there you go. So this is exactly where the image is on the local virtual machine, which is where the Instruqt interactive learning environment is running. Okay, so let's see here. We did MS path. That's step number 9A. 9B, we confirm the path, echo B. And now we're just going to save the bash rc, save to bash rc this environmental variable, which is MS path. Okay, and that's all done. Now we're going to deploy the microservice image. We've created the image. Now we're going to deploy it. So we're going into the source working directory, the source code, but also the build directory. And if we're to look in here just for giggles, you'll see there is the actual image right there. And we're going to echo the build path. There's the build path. And then what we're going to do is we're going to deploy the image. And this is we're going to use the command line tool. We're going to say image deploy, and it wants to know the path, and it wants to know the access token. And once this happens, this this image becomes registered to the mimik ecosystem as a registered microservice, and it runs in a serverless manner. So the service is going to run as just an independent service, and Mimik technology will provide all the runtime mechanics that are needed to run the service. So anyway, let's go here. We're going to run the CLI tool. Okay, and you can see here, let's take another look here. Let's just get a nice pretty look. Okay, and you can see that the image has been deployed, and it's known to the microservice, the Mimik microservice network. All this stuff is very Mimik stuff. Okay, so now we need to extract the name of the microservice. And we're going to assign it to MS image name. So we'll go here. And let's see if we can echo here and see what happens. Okay, so that is the image name. Okay. And the next step is we have to save that to bash RC, the environmental variable MS image name, so that it's available in the next topic, which is deploying the edgeEngine microservice container. All right, so let's go into the starter microservice working directory. Oops, cut and paste error. Let's go into the microservice working directory. There you go. All right, let's echo the image name, make sure we have the information we need. Let's do the access token. Then I'm going to clear the screen immediately. Okay, there is an access token. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the start.json file, which ships by default. And what the start.json file does is it provides the configuration that the container needs in order to run in the Mimik environment. So I'm going to delete the one that ships by default, because it's really just a placeholder file. And instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to inject a new start.json, and this has the name of the image. It has the image name, which these happen to be the same, but it also has the API path, which in this case is hello v1, and it also has socket support true. So this is how the container knows how to express itself in the runtime environment. So we have that's done. Okay, and then I'm going to go to image container, and I'm going to deploy the container this time. Before I deployed the image, now I'm going to deploy the container. It needs to know the payload, the start.json, and it needs the access token so that the Mimik network knows about it. So I'm going to enter. Okay, good. And now let's see, let's run a little cat action here and see what happens. Okay, and there you can see this is all the information about how the container is running. Everything we need to know is in that output. Good. So now let's see, what we need to do is we need to create a base API path so that we know how to do pathing via an API call. And let's echo that path and see what it comes up with. Okay, and you can see this is the special identifier that identifies the API in the Mimik ecosystem. And this is how the microservice will be identified when we call it later on in the following topic. So we got here, let's send that out to bash RC. Okay, now we're saving it from track to track. Now it's going to be time to exercise the microservice. And again, you can do this whole tutorial interactively in the Instruqt interactive educational environment, and we're going to pass you the embed code that you can work directly with this tutorial. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, let's start. Okay, good. So now we have to do some housekeeping in terms of creating a callable URL. And since we're in the Instruqt environment, we have to make the URL particular to Instruqt. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to create an Instruqt URL, which is based on the host name and sandbox ID that gets assigned by Instruqt. This is very particular to the Instruqt runtime environment. So we're going to do that. Okay, let's echo the base. Oops. Let's echo the base RPI. Okay, so you can see here, there's base RPI. We had that before. And now what we're going to do is we're going to concatenate the base RPI and the Instruqt URL together, or the Instruqt URL and the base API together, and we'll get something that looks like this. Okay, and there it is. And now we're going to go and we're going to run a curl command. This should actually call the service directly. So we'll run curl against that, and there it is, hello world. And what you've seen now is that the curl command has gone out and circuitously moved through the mimik ecosystem to get to the microservice, which happens to be running on this local environment. But if it was elsewhere on some other machine, we could still get to it based on URL definition. Okay, so there you have it. We installed the mimik engine, the edgeEngine runtime. We installed the CLI tool. We did some housekeeping about how to get an account ID, a project, a developer ID, an access token, all that stuff. We created a we created an image of the mimik microservice. And then we deployed it, and then we created a container and deployed that container on the microservice, and then we exercised it. So congratulations, you've just deployed and exercised a simple microservice on edgeEngine, and I hope you take the tutorial.